All right, so let's dive into DEI.
DEA, yeah.
DEI, yeah.
Yeah?
Making sure that those initiatives actually work.
hmm
And, we want to try to avoid any of those kind of nasty unintended consequences that can sometimes happen.
Yeah.
You've probably heard of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and, companies are pouring a ton of resources into it.
Yeah,
But the thing is, it can backfire if not done right.
for sure.
And we could be talking about actually harming the groups that you're trying to help.
Absolutely. And it happens more often than you think.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Our deep dive today is based on research from Business Horizons, which is a pretty prominent business journal.
Okay, so we know this is the real deal then.
This is the real deal, yeah.
$8 billion.
Wow.
That's what U.S. companies alone are spending every single year on diversity training.
Yeah.
And get this, the number of chief diversity officers has skyrocketed over 168% in just a few years. Yeah, so we've got all this investment, but a lot of organizations are seeing mixed results or even like negative unintended consequences,
Yeah.
which is what we're calling DEI Backfire.
Exactly.
The research digs into something called workforce diversity,
Yeah.
which I guess is like dividing the workforce into different categories based on like shared characteristics
Right.
within a cultural context.
Exactly.
But the thing is, these categories actually influence employment outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
like who gets hired or promoted, regardless of their skills.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what does this backfire actually look like?
Yeah.
I remember that Coca-Cola Be Less White thing a
Yeah.
while back.
Oh, yeah.
Even with good intentions, it seems like things can really go sideways.
Oh, for sure. And that's a perfect example of what we're talking about, this DEI backfire.
Oh, really?
Yes. And the research highlights other instances, too. For example, mandatory diversity training can actually make prejudice worse.
What?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
It sounds counterintuitive. I know. But it can even lead to fewer people from the groups that it's meant to help getting hired or promoted.
Wait, so you're saying forcing people to be more inclusive can make things less inclusive?
It's a head-scratcher for sure, but the research points to the impact of social identity theory and stereotype threat.
Okay, so break that down for me. I'm interested.
So social identity theory basically says that we define ourselves partly through the groups we belong to.
Okay.
So when we feel like our group is being unfairly favored or our competence is being questioned because of that group, it can trigger negative reactions.
Oh, so if someone feels like they're being excluded or judged based on their group, they might get resentful.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where stereotype threat comes in.
Okay.
When people are aware of negative stereotypes about their group, they may actually underperform in situations where those stereotypes are relevant.
That's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
Wow, this is heavy stuff.
It is heavy stuff.
But it makes it really clear how important it is to get this right. It's not about checking boxes. It's about creating a genuinely inclusive environment
Yeah,
where everyone feels valued and respected
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
for who they are and what they bring to the table.
For sure.
So what do we do?
Well, the research actually gives us some specific recommendations to minimize this risk of backfire
Okay.
and to create DEI initiatives that actually work.
I like it. So let's get practical.
Okay, let's do it.
What do the researchers suggest?
So they outline 5 key recommendations,
Okay,
and we'll kind of unpack each of those.
let's do it. Hit me with recommendation number 1.
Okay, number 1 is broaden engagement in targeted recruitment.
Okay, you mentioned targeted recruitment.
Yeah.
So how do we do this the right way?
So instead of misrepresenting diversity, focus on giving potential candidates a realistic preview of the job.
Okay.
And the company culture, be upfront about the good and the bad.
So transparency is key.
Transparency is key.
What else?
Get your managers involved in the recruitment process. Give them ownership and help them feel like they're part of the solution. And of course, emphasize that hiring decisions are based on merit.
Yeah.
Use tools like psychometric assessments to evaluate skills and qualifications objectively.
Right, because if a manager feels forced to hire someone, they're going to be resentful,
Exactly.
which is the opposite of what we're going for.
Completely.
So that's targeted recruitment. What's next?
So the next recommendation is all about context.
Okay.
We need to adopt a context-conscious perspective on diversity training.
Right. I like it. What does that mean?
So it means recognizing that diversity training isn't one size fits all. You need to consider your organization's unique context
Okay.
and your employees' specific needs.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of making it a standalone mandatory thing, try integrating diversity training into other programs like leadership development or onboarding.
Yeah, that's smart. Make it feel like a natural part of professional development, not just a box to check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It also helps to downplay the focus on specific target groups, which can sometimes lead to feelings of resentment or victimhood.
Interesting point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
Are there any other tips to make this more effective and less likely to backfire?
absolutely. Proactively address training challenges.
Okay.
People come to diversity training with different levels, awareness, experience, and anxieties.
Right.
Acknowledge those individual differences and provide support before, during, and even after the training to make it a positive and productive experience for everyone.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered targeted recruitment and diversity training.
Right.
What's the third recommendation?
This one is all about accountability.
Oh, accountability. I have a feeling this is important.
It's super important.
Tell me more.
So creating those DEI accountability structures, it starts with top management.
Okay.
They need to be visibly committed to DEI.
Okay.
When leaders champion these efforts, it sends a really powerful message to the organization. And to make sure those good intentions actually translate into real action, you need to build organizational responsibility. Through structure, develop clear DEI plans, create task forces, and even designate a dedicated DEI manager or function.
So it's not enough to just talk about it. You need systems and structures
You need to have those in place.
in place.
Yeah, what else?
A crucial element of accountability is a fair and effective grievance system.
Okay.
This gives employees a safe and confidential way to report any concerns they have about discrimination or unfair treatment.
That's so important for building trust.
It is.
Okay, so we've got top management, buy-in, clear structures, a solid grievance system. What's next?
Next up is alignment.
Alignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to align DEI with communication and culture.
Ah, yes, communication and culture.
They go hand in hand.
They do. How do we make that happen?
So be open and honest about DEI, both in formal settings like meetings and more casual settings like workshops or events.
Okay.
But it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Okay.
Dialogue-oriented leadership is key.
I like that phrase, dialogue-oriented leadership.
It suggests a willingness to listen and learn, not just preach from on high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Oh, it's so true.
You can have a fantastic DEI plan, but if it doesn't align with your company culture, it's not going to be effective.
So how do we make sure that it feels like a natural extension of the company's values and not just something we're being forced to do?
So get senior leaders involved in actively shaping the organization's DEI agenda.
Okay.
Encourage them to translate DEI initiatives in a way that genuinely reflects the company's mission and values.
Make it authentic.
Make it authentic, yes.
Okay, we're on to the fifth and final recommendation. What's the last piece of the puzzle?
The final piece is evaluation.
Evaluation.
Yeah, we need a multi-level approach to monitor and evaluate DEI practices.
Okay, break it down for me.
So you need to monitor and evaluate DEI efforts at 3 distinct levels.
Okay.
First, at the senior manager level, use performance management systems to hold managers accountable for DEI goal progress.
So track things like representation in different departments, promotion rates, the success of those diversity recruitment efforts we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Got it.
Then at the organizational level, regularly assess overall DEI progress and identify any areas where things aren't working as well as they could be.
Okay.
And this is crucial. Make sure those DEI practices are baked into the long-term strategy, not just a one-off program.
Got it. And what's the third level?
The third level is the overall inclusion climate.
Okay.
This goes beyond numbers and metrics.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how employees feel about the organization's DEI efforts.
How do we gauge that?
Ask them.
Okay.
Use surveys, focus groups, even one-on-one conversations to get that qualitative data on the inclusion climate.
Mm-hmm.
Do people feel included, valued, respected? Are they able to bring their full selves to work?
It's not just about having diverse faces in the room. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels like they belong.
You nailed it. And that brings us to the end of the 5 evidence-based recommendations for minimizing DEI backfire and creating a more inclusive and equitable workplace.
Wow, what a whirlwind tour of DEI done right. So much valuable information in this deep dive. And listener, if you are responsible for DEI at your organization, don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
These recommendations are a fantastic roadmap for creating meaningful and sustainable change.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination. And every step you take towards a more inclusive workplace is a step in the right direction.
So true.
It really is about progress, not perfection.
That's so true. We're all learning as we go. Speaking of learning, the research also highlights some companies that are actually doing this really well.
Yeah.
Can we look at a couple of those for inspiration?
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Okay.
Microsoft is a great example.
Okay.
They've taken this learner-centric approach to diversity training, allowing employees to kind of customize their learning paths based on their individual needs and interests.
I love that it's empowering, giving employees the agency to kind of choose their own adventure.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more engaging and effective that way. Another company that's doing some great work is Walmart. They're known for their commitment to merit-based decision-making, using psychometric assessments to evaluate leadership potential, and ensuring that promotions are based on skills and qualifications, not demographics.
That's fantastic. Ensuring fairness and transparency in the promotion process. That's great. Are there any other companies that stand out?
Yeah, United Airlines is doing some really innovative things with targeted recruitment.
Okay.
They've made a serious investment in their flight school, focusing on recruiting women and people of color, groups that have been historically underrepresented as pilots.
That's brilliant. They're not just filling existing positions. They're actually building a pipeline of talent.
For the future, yeah.
That's impressive.
It's a great example of thinking long-term and taking proactive steps to build a more inclusive workforce.
I love it. These are just a few examples, but they demonstrate that it is possible to get DEI right. And the more we learn from each other and share these best practices, the better equipped we'll be to create truly inclusive workplaces everywhere.
Absolutely. Learning from each other is so important.
We covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, so to make sure our listeners walk away with the key takeaways, let's recap those 5 recommendations.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, recommendation number 1, broaden engagement in targeted recruitment. What's the main point here?
Keep it real.
Okay.
Be transparent and involve managers in the process. Don't try to project a false image of diversity. Instead, focus on creating a welcoming and inclusive environment for everyone.
Authenticity is key.
Oh.
Okay. Recommendation number 2, adopt a context-conscious perspective on diversity training. What does that involve?
Make it relevant, engaging, and supportive. Integrate diversity training into other programs, address trainee challenges proactively, and give employees a choice in what they learn.
Perfect recommendation. Number 3, create DEI accountability structures. What are the essentials here?
Top management support is crucial.
Okay.
Build organizational responsibility through clear structures and roles, and establish a fair and transparent grievance system.
Got it. Number 4, align DEI with communication and culture. What are the key takeaways?
Use a variety of communication channels, promote dialogue-oriented leadership.
Okay.
And make sure your DEI initiatives are genuinely aligned with the organization's values.
And finally, recommendation number 5, use a multi-level approach to monitor and evaluate DEI practices. What are the 3 levels we need to focus on?
The senior manager level, the organizational level, and the all-important inclusion climate.
Okay.
Monitor progress, assess the effectiveness of initiatives, and gather regular feedback from employees.
There you have it. 5 actionable recommendations to minimize the risk of DEI backfire and create a more inclusive and equitable workplace.
And remember, this is just the starting point.
Yeah.
DEI is an ongoing journey.
That's right.
And there's always more to learn and do. But by taking this systematic and evidence-based approach, organizations can make real progress toward creating workplaces where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to thrive.
Well said. This deep dive has given me so much to think about. It's clear that DEI is not just a trend. It's a fundamental aspect of building a thriving and just workplace. Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay.
Think about your own organization. How is diversity communicated and celebrated? Is there a genuine commitment to inclusion, or does it feel more like a box-ticking exercise?
That's a great question to reflect on, because ultimately DEI is about creating a workplace where everyone feels like they belong.
Yes.
Where they can bring their whole selves to work and where they have the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into DEI. Done right. We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Yeah.
It really is about creating that sense of belonging.
Fostering that culture where everyone feels safe and respected, empowered to contribute their unique talents and perspectives.
Yeah, and that benefits everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
When people feel included, they're more engaged, more productive,
Right.
more likely to stay with the organization.
It's a win-win.
It is.
This deep dive has given me so much to think about.
Yeah.
And I hope it's done the same for our listener out there.
I hope so too. And if you're feeling inspired, to take action, maybe a little unsure where to start, remember those 5 recommendations we talked about.
Yeah.
Take a look at your own organization and think about which of those recommendations feels most relevant, actionable for your specific context.
Great advice. It's about taking those evidence-based insights and tailoring them to your own situation.
Exactly. And remember, DEI is an ongoing journey.
Right.
There's always more to learn, more to do, more ways to grow.
That's true.
But by taking a thoughtful and intentional approach, we can create workplaces that are truly inclusive and equitable for everyone.
This has been such a fantastic deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you found this deep dive into DEI done right, informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, building a more inclusive world starts with each of us.
It does.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.